Hi, and welcome to another edition of Field Service Leaders, the podcast from Leading Digital. I'm Alistair Clifford-Jones, the CEO. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Scott Adams, who started his career as a field engineer working at Burroughs that then became Unisys. He's now the Director of Service at J.M. Brennan. We talked about how AI has transformed the industry, but what's interesting is we talked about a real case study with real benefits. So many people talk about technology, but find it hard to pin it to benefits. It's not all about technology. Scott and I also discussed the importance of the technician, how he or she is the cog in the industry and such an important part, and how that could develop in the future. Good morning, Scott. So I think it's morning in your time. Can you just give me a quick
Yes, it
overview
is.
of your career journey and how you got into field service?
Yeah, I guess we could start off from the professional aspect of it. I think my first job when I was in my early 20s was as a field engineer at Burroughs Computer Corporation. So I don't know if that name rings true, but back in the day in the early 80s, it was 70% IBM. And then the rest of it came into what do you call the bunch, Burroughs, Univac, NCR, Control Data, and Honeywell. So I was part of Burroughs, a fantastic organization, very successful, very large mainframe manufacturer, Unix-based systems, financial systems. So I really attribute that particular job with catapulting my entire career and everything I learned at that organization. So, that if you looked at the journey to field leadership, that particular job working in data center services then moved me into Johnson Controls. Johnson Controls, we initiated a program called Data Center Services, which was power and environmental analysis for critical space. So we did a lot of contract work with Bank of America, technology centers, and things of that nature. That particular engagement got me quite a bit of notoriety at Johnson Controls. So I actually was looking at how they did service from a technician standpoint and identified a lot of problems and issues. And I wrote a 5-page dissertation, presented it to my ops manager. I guess he was so impressed that he said, "Okay, now Scott, I'm going to task you to fix them." So that was my first foray into into field leadership. So that's what got me into field leadership from a supervisory standpoint, and from there on, just adding to my career challenges and experiences.
So, have there been any particular mentors, you think, or leaders that have given you advice that have made a big difference to your career, Scott?
Yeah, if I look at influential people, certainly high school teachers are in the influential category, but again, I fall back on the professional nature of Burroughs Computer Corporation. We had some of the finest managers. That was back in the day when field engineers had to wear suit and ties and things of that nature. Oh, that's taking it back a little bit. But there was just an air of professionalism that was so engaging and alluring. And I always said, like, I want to be like these guys, right? They're communicative. They treat the employees well. They have exquisite customer satisfaction and management skills. They were smart. They were engineers, but yet, had that management background. So, guys like Jay Weinkauf and Bob Dick and John Sawyer at Burroughs, those are my mentors. Yeah.
So life's moved on a bit in terms of sort of technology, I think. Is there an emerging technology that really excites you that's probably very different from the past?
Well, the complete buzz is AI, right? And it's I was just at Field Service East in Orlando, and of course AI was a big topic. There's much discussion from a lot of agentic organizations there. I think the way they were looking at it is, 1 to 2 years ago, there was this flurry of activity on how can we integrate AI into all of our business processes and technology. And then there was a realization that there was an epic failure. No one could really integrate it because the technology and the companies really weren't there. But I think where they are today with the technology, with how the support agencies have matured, they're really looking at the next 1 to 2 to 5 years as instrumental in the development and indoctrination and embracement of AI when it comes to all of your rote kind of processes and how you can make them more efficient and actually carve out some of that organic the human time, replace it with more of the machine learning, free up that capital for further use and value. I think that's the key. So,
So do
yeah, AI.
yeah, no, I'm just thinking in terms of AI as a technology, but do you see it transforming things within the business and the way people operate?
Yeah. So, I think it's, the key element is what software platforms you're utilizing or you choose to buy will embrace AI within the development of their system. One great example I have is, we have Coins ERP, which happens to be a UK based system. And then also we integrate XOI, which is a, field facing platform where you can develop custom workflows for tasks that technicians perform. So you have the ability to develop a custom workflow for a particular piece of machine or equipment and thereby collect all the video images, all of the pictures, measurements, whatever that looks like. So by using XOI, they are aggressively integrating AI into it. And here's a big thing. So one of the features they have is AI summaries. So when a technician completes their workflow, there's a tremendous amount of information within the embodiment of that XOI workflow that goes to the customer. XOI will pick that up, run it through an agentic system, and then develop you this fantastic summary that looks like it was, developed by someone with a master's degree because it's so elegant and it's consistent and it kind of encapsulates everything. So they put actually a like a ROI calculator. Believe that they came to the point where with every keystroke is 2 seconds, and so based on how many words you have, they calculated that amount of savings time multiplied by your hourly rate. So in the course of the last 6 months, using that AI summary aspect, we've saved $192,000 within our tech group. So we have about 85 technicians just on the HVAC side. Significant, right? I mean, now we're putting some real dollars to some of the feature sets, but more importantly, it gave us a very consistent and concise summary that goes to the customer that reads very professionally because, the reality of many of the field personnel is they don't have, the time to either write it out or there's inconsistency, improper grammar. So this is all kind of nullified. That's a great example of us using, another company that's embraced AI to our advantage and we'll continue to do so. So I think the key is whether it's your FSM system or your ERP or some other bolt-on software, ensure that those companies have either indoctrinated or tend to embrace AI within their software set.
So introducing that, was that a challenge? Because did it sort of dumb down a
Very
little
much
bit
so.
what field technicians thought they were there to do?
Yeah, I mean, it can be somewhat insulting, right? There was a initial kind of, like, what are you doing with AI, right? I'm very proud of how I develop my notes and my conclusions and things of that nature. So, to get them involved early on in the process, show them exactly how it was going to develop, the confidence of the software. Again, we're talking pure change management. And when we brought across the whole platform, because we went live with Coins and XOI at the same time. So it was like a double whammy. But previous to that, we were very successful with the launch with the field, but the reason being is the structure and the coaching and the change management philosophy we use. So, don't leave anyone behind. We had highly powerful training sessions. And then what we did is we stratified those particular training sessions into groups. So, everyone learns at a different level at a different speed. They're more comfortable with technology or less comfortable. So we segregated those off and then we had special sessions for each of those groups. So, of course, your older technicians, they might not embrace the technology as much. So we knew that and we got them into a group. And then we basically, my philosophy is we coach them into submission. So we gave them all the necessary training and support. And, from that philosophy, because you have your early adopters and you have your late adopters, we were able to take that whole, you know, ecosystem of technicians and move them into the platform quite successfully. So we're very happy with that But, it doesn't come without pain, and it takes a lot of time, and a lot of companies, need to realize that there is a significant capital investment just within the training to get these embraced within the system.
So that's really interesting. So that's the field side. But Scott, you've been involved in field service for a long time. So in terms of customer experience, do you think their expectations have changed over the time?
Yeah, that's real interesting. And I think the key is, do we really have a hold on their expectations? I mean, that's the thing that
Okay.
puzzles me. I would like to think that being management schooled in the business for quite a while, I have good line of sight on where we need to go with our customers. So with the dynamic changing environment out there, personnel changes, again, AI indoctrination, different philosophies on how they're going to manage their business to profitability. That is a significant challenge, the expectations. So we can only do, I guess, you look around the marketplace, you stay very well invested in some of the groups that they're involved with because that gives you line of sight on, what's important to them, like whether it's, IFMA or BOMA or some of these organizations, ASHRAE, whatever it might be, staying involved with those with your customers. I think actually having touch points with them, just sitting down and saying, what is truly important, not only to you, but to your organization and to your boss, because everyone has someone that they have to report to that they want to look good for. Example would be capital plan. You have millions of dollars of assets. Maybe I'm working with facility manager that's not super critical. It's important. They know what their line of sight is on that. But their boss, the CFO, clearly needs that information from a budgeting perspective. So in order to, we can actually make that facility manager very successful by providing them with that capital planning initiative and information so that they can present it up. And then we become a stickier point with that organization and what they need, not just from, who we work with, but who they surround themselves with. So I think that's the key because, it's, go back to the ecosystem of an organization. You have to make sure that you're touching all those elements because, at some point, if the financial community comes down and they're not receiving the benefit from the providers, then you're in jeopardy, I believe.
Yeah. So we've got AI and we've got automation and we've got all this wonderful technology. Do you think that that replaces the human touch in terms of customer service?
Mm. No, nor should it. There is a significant play for AI. If what we're doing right now, because this is a question we ask ourselves daily, right? Like, how can we embrace AI effectively? So I'm actually working with one agentic organization. Just to give you an example, we have a very manual process, and you have to have a repeatable manual process to make AI relevant. So this happens to be in field quoting. So we have all of our technicians on the field. They identify opportunities for improvement in customer sites, whether that be repair or replacement. That information comes through XOI, through the visual channels, get good information, but then it has to be manually processed into a quotation. So that information has to be extracted manually, has to be put into an estimating sheet. The proposal has to be developed. That proposal then is sent out via email with the embedded XOI link showing the details of the service engagement. So we have support staff that are doing that for our field and our project managers. That is a classic example of how can we automate this effectively with AI because it's very predictable in that sense. When we started just our manual process, we are at probably 35% closure rate with our customers on some of these proposals. As we got more into a structured approach with the visual aids from XOI, we upped that to about 70%. So now it's how can we take that 70%, automate it, and free up our existing human capital for other opportunities? That 70% closure rate also translated into freeing up project manager sales time to equate to about $9 million. So, we're seeing some real benefits. And then
Wow.
it's like taking those benefits and working them into the AI field.
Okay. It's fascinating that everything about technology, but I think it's sort of mentioned it's sort of partly about people as well, and needing to take care of your teams. How do you foster that kind of strong team spirit, given that we're replacing a number of functions with AI, etc.?
Yeah. Well, there's a real opportunity for a high level and very intimate type of employee and customer concern. So I think we pride ourselves here on being we have very professional managers. In fact, many of us have management degrees, but yet we're experts in our field. So I think you have to have, going back to my roots as a field engineer, such respect for the customer and such respect for the technician. And then how do you relate that into your existing organizational structure? Because it's all about, as we become very impersonal with technology, we have to amplify our concern and care for the customer and the employee, meaning care and concern. So I think that's the message there is the shifting of responsibilities. Like we don't even have an HR department here. We have 700 people
Wow.
present in our organization, and people like freak out over that, right? Like you don't have an HR department. We have an administrator, but the two owners are clearly, they're the ultimate say so. But the beauty of that is we have a director level, which we have 4 directors, myself being one. And it is incumbent upon us, as professional managers and leaders to take care of our team. So we have that relationship. We know what they're going through. We know the customers. We know the technology, the situations, the impersonality that can come through. So, what better situation than for us to take care of our people, right? So that's been kind of our moniker of success, is that we don't impersonalize it with an HR department. We personalize it with people that are subject matter experts and leaders, I guess, when it comes to the management practices. So I think that's that's a message to all companies is that level of commitment from your managers.
Because I guess sometimes HR can be seen as a barrier between managing people almost.
Yes, yes. I worked at a lot of large organizations. I worked at Johnson Controls, Harley Davidson Motor Company, MCOR, and I can say the environment we have here and our structural setup is clearly a differentiator in the marketplace because of the personality that we can embrace, right? The persona, the family feel, it's times kind of quirky, but that's the reality is that's what we try to foster. And companies that can do that, they become stickier and people don't want to leave. They like the environment. They like how they're treated professionally and as an individual. So I think, again, as we move into a very impersonal future, the personality of the company and the managers has to come through.
It's interesting. So looking at the future, what do you think field service will look like in 5 years' time with all this change?
I thought about this, and I like to say it's going to be rapidly transformed through AI, and we're going to see amazing things, and technology is just going to boom, and we're going to be wearing Google glasses and troubleshooting, and you name it, right? I mean, you can envision the Jetsons way back when, but the reality is when I look back, when I was at Field Service East, I think it was Schneider that was talking. They were talking about predictive technologies and the IoT of things, Internet of Things, and how
Yeah.
everything's going to have an address and be able to report out. These were things that we were talking about 25 years ago, and they still have not manifested. So I guess it's the impediment to change is always going to be the human factor. That is always going to be the limiting, the governor on the whole system. If companies or customers specifically will not embrace or pay for that or believe it's a value, that technology, as good as it is, will die or not be, prevalent. And that's what I've seen in the course of my 25, 30 years, even predictive technologies, smart systems. The customers at some level did not embrace because they did not appreciate it or the cost of it was, not worthy. So I think the humans will still drive that change. The technology will always be there. And in some situations, it will just become unbearable that we'll have to embrace it, right? From a competitive standpoint, when I look at my competitors in the marketplace, that is a driving factor. What we always want to be leaders, but what are my competitors doing? And because again, as good as you are today, you can be leapfrogged in a matter of months with the technology, especially from a competitive situation. So, again, how do you indoctrinate that technology successfully that it actually is a significant impact to the customers, the employees, and your business?
Next 24 months, what do you have any projects you're thinking about or anything that you're going to focus on?
Me personally, so Alistair, I'm actually retiring in December 19th. So
Okay.
it's kind of bittersweet because I feel like I'm in the apex of my career, right? And you have so much to offer, and I love what I'm doing, love the company. So I'm going to actually probably personally, I started like Service Operations Institute, which is my own company, do some consulting when it comes to that, still help out organizations transform and change management and embrace technology. So still probably work with Jan Brennan in some capacity to make sure that we maintain market leadership. So that's kind of what my glide path looks like.
Yeah, well, I think you've got a lot of experience, so you've got a lot to give. That's come through in bounds over this conversation. I think just finally, a bit of fun. If you had a magic wand and you could say solve one challenge in field service, what would it be, Scott?
I would like to wave that wand over our entire portfolio of customers and employees, understand all the dynamic issues that would be, fix all the dynamic issues, right? The things that we can't get visibility on. We can get visibility on technology, but we can't get visibility into the psyche of the customer or the employee. And that's, I think, the biggest challenge that I see. There's to get to that, if you have that magic wand, to wave it over and thoroughly understand each employee and each customer and exactly what they need to make them whole with our company and with what we do for them. So I think that's, every company asks that, right? Like, how can we better ourselves for our customers? Because really, your employees are the face of your organization. So they are key. If they're happy, if they're content, if they're technologically challenged, if they feel they get the support, you believe they're doing all the right things out there with the customer, but you don't know. So to understand that, right, the impact that we have on customers, yeah, you could do surveys, you can do, meet and greets. No one has the time to do, I think, the necessary things to understand their business. To do that on a magic wand basis and really get that data in and understand and then be able to adjust your business, I think would be pretty nice.
Perfect. Okay, Scott, that's been fascinating talking to you, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank,
Right.
thank
We'll
you,
stop
Alistair.
this